All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Streets is Talking podcast, man. I know it's been a long time since I've been with y'all, man. It's been a lot going on, but today we're here for a special reason. You know, one of my favorite reasons is Black History Month coming up, and I want to give you guys a little something different this time. So, I have in front of me a very amazing lady, a lady of many talents, a pillar in the community, you know, just to name a little things. I met her about 4 or 5 months ago when I started working. And just through those months, I come to learn so much about her, from her great talents to her history and her adventurous life. So we're just going to touch into that a little bit today. So with no further introduction, Miss Betty Kelly.
Hi.
All right, Miss Kelly. So just give us a little rundown of who Betty Kelly is and what you want everybody to take from this interview.
Well, my name is Betty Kelly, and I was born in Albany, Georgia in 1946. And I went to school there, public schools, and I attended Albany State University. I really want from this interview for you to take my journey as a young person to where I am today, and how I started and in the process of what I had to go through, and never gave up. And I want everybody to know that everybody can make it despite any type of obstacles that
Yes,
you
ma'am.
might have in your life.
Yes, ma'am. Most definitely. Y'all hear that? All right. So she basically telling y'all if she could do it, y'all could do it. So there's no excuse to stop. There's no excuse to hear somebody tell you can't do nothing, because I'm sure she was told that many times,
Oh,
and she
yes.
just kept pushing, you know. All right. So you said you were born in Albany, Georgia in 1946. Now,
Right.
I know a lot of my age people know Albany, Georgia. You know, some of my cousins went to the college at Albany State. I had some great homecomings down there. Very good town. So tell me what Albany was like when you were a child.
Well, one of the things I'd like to talk about first is my upbringing,
Okay.
my home, my family. My family, I was not a rich person. As a matter of fact, I was poor and didn't know it because of the family, the type of family I had. We were close knit. We believed in God, and we attended church almost every day.
Yes, ma'am.
And the thing is that because we were so, my parents were so into religion, they taught us to always respect. They taught us to always think well of ourselves. And we did. And we had our weekly meetings, you know, we ate together. We just had fun. But one of the things that always stayed with me was, though, even though they said that we were somebody, but when we went out, we were the opposite.
Yes, ma'am.
But because of my parents, it never got me down. Now, my cousins were the highlight of my life, too. And this is one cousin that I have. I only had her picture, and her name was Dr. Rambo. Now, during that time, she's much older than me.
Okay.
But during that time, on Cherry Street was a place that I loved to go to be with them. It was 8 of them. And it was about 5 girls, and all of those girls had they got doctorate degrees. They were a big influence on me as far as my education, and also the Civil Rights Movement, this one in especially. And she's in the Smithsonian Institute now for writing a song for the Albany movement. But during my childhood, one thing stood with me is that when I went to the zoo with my mom, because she would always make sure we go, that I was so thirsty. And I said, Mom, I want some water. And she said, I saw the water fountain. And she said, well, you can't use that one. And I said, why not? She said, she didn't want to tell me. She felt really sad, and she said, that's for whites only. And I probably was about 7 years old at that time, and I just didn't understand that.
And what zoo was this?
That was the Albany Zoo.
Oh, Albany
Yeah.
has its own zoo?
Oh, they had a zoo.
Okay.
Yeah.
How big was the zoo?
It wasn't that large, but it was,
Okay.
to us, it was
It
large.
had, what kind of animals did
Oh,
it
it had all the animals. They had, that they have in a regular
tigers,
tigers,
all that. Wow.
giraffe. It was nice.
Okay.
It was a nice
I
zoo.
bet you can't believe that.
Yeah.
A zoo in Albany?
Yeah,
Okay.
they had a
Well,
zoo.
all right.
And I don't think it was as large as the others are now, but it was a little zoo, and I was just devastated. So then later on, of course, when I got to maybe going into my 10th grade year, which was 1961, I think in November of 1961, there were 5 young men who went to the Trailway bus station to do a sit-in.
Yes, ma'am. We gonna get into that.
Okay.
We gonna get into that.
Okay.
So I want to take it back a minute.
Okay.
You were talking about your upbringing and your parents and things of that nature. Now, people who know me and who will listen to this interview will know that my family, the Middleton family, is from a rural area in South Carolina called Clarks Hill. So when you said we were poor, but we didn't think we were poor or know we were
didn't
poor,
know.
right? That's the same thing for my family. My great-great-grandmother had 15 children, all in the same house. That house is still in our family to this day. We call it the big house. And hearing the stories, my uncles, my aunts would tell me, and my grandma, being the oldest of the 15 children, would tell me a lot of stories about how they came up. My granddaddy worked on the railroad. My great-grandma was a homekeeper. So it was like whatever they grew, whatever they raised, that's how they lived, that's how they ate. And it's just the stories you hear all the time of, like you said, your cousins, it was 8 of them. So I'm sure that household was probably full of a lot of memories, activities, dinners, like you said. The church really did rotate in the life of the black community at that time because everybody went to church.
That's right.
On Sunday, during the week, on the weekend, it was church. Everything was related around church. And then after church, still to this day, the Sunday dinners, And my family, we haven't done that as much in these last years, but when I was coming up as a kid, every Sunday after church, we at my grandma's house, and it's just, I can understand what you mean by when you say you came up not knowing you were poor, but to everybody else, it was regular. That's how you live, you know what I'm saying? So with that, in the church you attended, now, what church did you attend in Albany?
Okay. I attended, it was called Shepherd.
Okay.
That was a nickname, but it was First Bethesda Baptist Church. However, I have a picture here, and my brother took this about 4 years ago.
Okay.
This is called a tin top.
A tin top.
The tin top. Okay. Now, the tin top was very important to the people that lived in the city. I lived in the city. Our church was in the country.
Right.
So we used to go. We only had church once a month, but during the other Sundays we would go to the tin top, and it was just a building with 10, and the top was 10. One room. We would have Sunday school, and then we would go home. Then we'd come back for BYPU. Then we would come on Wednesday nights for I guess Bible study.
Okay.
But this place, even now, we are going, before the pandemic, I was going to get together a reunion for the tin top because people in Albany knew the tin top. It was just, it was not a nice looking place, but it was.
Job done.
Oh my God, we had so much fun there. Right. We praise God. We just had so much fun with the elder and hearing them sing. I've never heard anything since then in my life.
The old school, music, just foot tapping.
That's right.
Tapping.
We had a little organ that was, I don't know, it was like one of those pump organs,
Okay.
But they didn't use that. But they had beautiful voices, and I can still hear them now.
Doing all that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I went. I went there, and then later on, I went to the Episcopal Church.
Love to raise hymns. They do all the time. They tell about all the old singing, the deacons raising the hymns.
Oh yeah.
The mothers of the churches.
And singing and praying, and
yes,
we
ma'am.
mimicked them. We go home and we'll do what they did during the week. We would mimic them all week long.
Ma'am. Now, you told us about your experience at the zoo and how your mom treated that experience and explained it to you. So in that time, it was a lot going on for African Americans in the United States, and especially in the South. So your childhood, you grew up in that civil rights era where everything was from Emmett Till.
Yeah, I remember Emmett Till.
The bus boycotts, to you yourself being involved in the civil rights movement as a teenager. So growing up, was the racism in Albany, was it out loud, or was it more behind the scenes, like they wouldn't display it unless, quote unquote, you got out of line?
Well, I would think, I'm thinking that it was outright, because anytime you had to go in the back door.
Right.
Or if you went to like the 10-cent store, the 5 and 10 store they call it. And when you were in line, and if a white person came, you had to get out of line. You had to let them go before you.
No matter
what
order the line was.
It didn't matter.
Okay.
And I was mischievous, okay? So, but at any rate, I mean, you get tired of that.
Yeah.
And I was a little rebellious, yes. And my mama was a little afraid for me sometimes, because I'll never forget this one lady. She was so nasty. The people come, you just wait, and she'll say the N-word. So, but the thing about
to a child.
Yes, to a child, to me. But the thing about it was that if she did not get the money from a black person and rang up the receipts, and she didn't get the money, she had to pay for it.
Okay. Was it her store, or was
No, she was just working there, but that was one of the rules.
All right.
So it was wrong, but I got fed up.
Yeah.
So that day, I let her. She was talking to one of her friends, and she said, "Oh, this little whatever can wait." But when she got to me, she just rang it up without taking the money. And I said, "Oh, I don't want it," and I left. But I never went back to that store again, because I just couldn't go back.
Yeah.
I said, I didn't know if they might have done something to me. I don't know. But she was very upset because she had to pay for that. But that's what you had to, go through.
Okay. Now, I know my family went to a county school. So it was McCormick County. It was just like everybody in that area went there, white, black, didn't matter. Until a certain point. They do tell me it was like all black elementary schools, and then when they got to middle and high school, it was everybody at some point. So in Albany, were the schools segregated, or was it a black-only school?
But during my time?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. It was segregated.
Okay.
I mean, I went to an all-black elementary, middle, and high school.
Okay.
I think they did, after I left, I know that they integrated.
Yeah. Okay. So how was the experience going to an all-black education system?
I loved it.
Loved it? Okay.
I had no problem with it, because the teachers, I'll say for the most part, the teachers loved the children, and they took good care of them for the most part. Now, there were a lot of problems. I'm not saying, but they took care of their own. And if you did wrong, you were afraid to do wrong, so you tried to do right, because they'll go to your house and tell your parents.
So it was a tight-knit community.
It was tight-knit.
And that was when everybody took care of everybody.
Everybody took care of everybody. And the thing is that when I got to high school, I remember that I started the flute right before then. And this band director was most influential in my life, because I always had a good work ethic from my parents, but he instilled even more into me. And he saw something in me, and he helped me so much. And I thought he was being cruel at some times, but I appreciated him so much for what he did,
So you began playing the flute in the band in high school. Was it a marching band?
Well, let me say, my daddy's called the Goodwill King, because he loved Goodwill.
Okay.
So he got my first piano from there.
Okay.
And nobody's interested in instruments.
Right.
So he said, I want you to play piano so you could play for the church. Well, my brother could do that without even trying, because he was like a genius. He could do anything. And I played, but I was not into it. So that summer I wanted to be in the band, and I said to him, please, Daddy, would you get me a flute? He said, no, I'm not getting you a flute because you won't play the piano. So my mother went down to the pawn, told me to go to the pawn shop. At that time, they could call. Go down there and get you one. She didn't even know what it was. And that's this instrument here, my very first one.
Can we see it?
Yes.
And what year was this? Was 1950?
This was like 60, 61. 61?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow.
But this is my first one here.
Okay. Your first flute.
My first flute for $50.
$50.
$50 flute. In 1960.
Which was a lot of money, right?
At that time it was a lot of money. Yeah. Okay. And she got it for me, and I started. I wanted a clarinet, and the band director, Mr. Murray, said no, get a flute. I didn't know what a flute was. I got the flute, and then after I got the flute, I said, I want to be in. They were gonna march in a parade, and he said, you can't do it because you just started. I said, can I have the music? And he said, yeah. So I said, okay. So I went back to him before they did. I said, I can play it. I never forget the piece. It was the Thunderer. And I said, I can play it. He said, you can't play it. I said, yes, I can. And I played it for him. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, my God, you can do it.
And this is 9th grade?
This was 10th grade. I was going into the 10th grade. That was the summer. Okay. So then he called the other man, which was Miss Lamar in high school. He said, I got somebody for you. He said, I can't believe her because she learned this by herself. Yeah. You know, they gave me a few lessons, but I did it. And that was my journey with this instrument here, you know. So then I joined the concert band, and you know, you have first, second, and third chair. Mm-hmm. And shucks, about November I was first chair. Okay. So from August to November, you became first chair in the flute. I did. All right. And I was just determined, and whatever I do, I try to do it. Right. But anyway, after then, in high school, you want me to go in high school, I was asked to be in the Omega Psi Phi fraternity talent show. Okay. And I didn't think nothing of it because I was doing dancing and everything else, so I did. And I won first place. And after winning first place, and this is the picture. Okay. Uh-huh. So after winning first place, there was a band director from Bethune-Cookman College, Albany State, and another college, I don't know. And I didn't know I had won, but I was getting ready to go change, and they said, oh, you're not leaving her. I said, no. So I won, and that flute, that night, I won. Guess how much I won? In scholarship money? Or no, just for the flute. No, for the contest. Guess how much I won? $200. No, $50. $50, a reimbursement. Okay. So at breakfast the next morning, when I was sitting there, I pulled out the $50. I said, Mommy, here's your $50. Oh. I said, I won your money back. Yeah. And she said, oh, no, babe. She didn't even know I was in the contest. Mm-hmm. She said, oh, no, babe, you keep that. But I did that for a purpose, right. To show I got your money back. Did you ever learn to play the piano? I could play the piano. You know, I took piano lessons in New York. I could play the piano, but it was not my love. Right. But I could play it with music. I could play with music. Okay. That's about it. All right. So now we get into high school. We're talking 1960, mm-hmm. 1961. Right. Things are cooking up in civil rights down south. Mm-hmm. The bus boycott just ended. Martin Luther King is coming on to the scene as a young, powerful pastor in Atlanta, spreading throughout the South, doing his thing. Now, also there is a abundance of student-led organizations and teenagers just becoming involved in the movement themselves. In Albany State, in particular, SNCC came to town, right? Are you familiar with SNCC? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, like you were saying, some young men did something at a bus stop, right? Yeah, they did a sit-in. So, when SNCC came in town, did you guys already know, like, okay, they're coming in town for a reason? It was the voter registration drive, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. So, your parents hearing that these college kids from up north or from out wherever coming down to help us register to vote, what were their feelings on that? My parents? Yes. My parents always instilled in us to be voters when we get older. They voted. So my daddy was he didn't retire from the Navy, but he was in the Navy, and he went back to get his GED. So he was into doing civic things. He always instilled us, always, be about your community, be about uplifting your community. So, yeah, they were happy about it, but in the same term, they were a little afraid.
Okay.
For even the SNCC members also, the students. But they knew within me that I was going to participate anyway.
Okay.
So
they knew.
They knew.
Like, it's coming. Were your you said your cousin,
Yeah.
was, Dr. Rambo? She's older than you, right?
She's about,
So
yeah.
she was already involved as a student in the Civil Rights Movement? Okay, how did she start off?
You know, I don't know how she really started off. I just know that she was always telling me she had to go to a meeting, and she would tell me what they would talk about, and she was saying, "Get ready because I want you to go when they organize fully at Shiloh," and that's what I did.
Okay.
Because Shiloh Baptist Church was where we
Yes.
went.
Yes. Okay. So speaking of Shiloh, I know you told us the church. Did you know about Shiloh?
Everybody.
Okay.
It's a prominent black church.
Okay.
Shiloh
that
and Mount
was
Zion.
where they were holding the meetings for anything in particular to
The
deal with
Albany
civil
Movement.
rights, right? Okay.
That was called the Albany Movement.
Right. Now, you said SNCC's in town. The voter registration has started. Did you know of a young man named Charles Sherrod? Okay. When did you meet him or know of him?
Well, he and Dr. Anderson were instrumental in getting it organized, I believe.
Yes.
And just being at the meetings, I never missed a meeting. I would be there.
Okay.
So I knew he was very involved in it, and he organized it.
Right. Okay. Now, when he came and then once he brought his other SNCC members with him, and they did do the sit-in at the bus station, was that the first act of protest in Albany?
Yes,
Okay.
as I know of it.
And what was the reaction to that?
There was a lot of reaction on both sides. Disbelief. People were afraid that they were going to get lynched because where I lived, the Ku Klux Klan used to come down that highway at night, and you could sleep with. I saw them, and we would be so afraid we would run inside. So naturally, everybody was afraid.
Wow.
You
so
know,
they did cross burnings and things like that.
They did. They just where they were going. I guess to their meetings were on our highway. Like we lived on Monroe Street, and that would go into Dawson and they were going to a little smaller town, but they would come through there. And sometimes I think they just did that anyway, go through neighborhoods. But I remember one night I was at the window and I saw them, and they used to keep their lights on in the car so you could see it.
Wow.
So that was intimidation. That was intimidation.
Was it a lot of them?
It'll be over 10 or 15 cars.
Okay.
It would be like a motorcade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw that, yeah.
That's crazy.
So it was intimidating.
So you had that, the people were shocked that was even going on, because throughout my research I found a case, I believe in Mr. Ware. It was an incident where the sheriff, he had died in police custody. He had got shot in police custody, like at the jailhouse. And I believe C.B. King filed charges on them, but of course the sheriff was acquitted.
Yeah.
Now, are you familiar with that case?
I am. I probably forgotten a little of it because but I remember that now.
Okay. So with that going on, with that case and the sit-in, people could see that something stirring. Right? With that, the voter registration, everything stirring. So the Albany movement itself,
That's when
like you said, Dr. William Anderson, right? He wasn't only did you guys go to his practice?
I didn't, but a lot of other people did. They did. He was a nice man.
Okay.
And I knew of his daughter because she went to school with us. But he was very instrumental in getting it organized. And that's when it started being organized after those 5 boys. That's when I started going to the meetings.
Yes, ma'am.
And they had meetings every day, you know, all during the week.
So him, and of course, like I said, the King brothers. Now the King family, even before the Civil Rights Movement, what was there in the community? What was there, I guess?
Well, they had a lot of businesses,
Right.
stores and different things. So one thing about Albany and my parents, we always patronized our own. We did that. We were told to. You know, we were always told, you go, there was Gavin across the street and there was King. And we had to go to the King grocery store.
To keep the dollar in the community.
To keep it in the community. And that was in our community because I could walk there. And we always had stores within our community that we patronized. And you know, they were getting ready for the boycott too. So I was used to it.
So, and with them owning businesses and creating quote unquote disruption throughout, did they get any backlash to their businesses because they were involved in the movement, or because?
Well, I'm sure they did.
Right.
Because I remember when I don't know if it was when I first went to jail or afterwards, that one of the wives, and I can't remember which one it was expecting a child, and she was pushed.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm sure they intimidated them all, you know, as much as they could.
That was Slater King.
Yes.
That was Slater King and his wife Marion.
Yeah.
That incident, was that widely known? Like, how fast did that news spread?
Very fast.
Very fast. And there was no consequences to that situation. So the background of that situation, one of the civil rights workers, Mr. King, his wife had went to the jail to, I don't know if it was either to bail her husband out or to send something to her husband. But while she was there, she was assaulted by an officer, by a sheriff, and kicked in the stomach while she was 6 months pregnant, and ultimately they lost their child. Now, if that's just not a cry of outrage or something, like, to be in that situation is terrible. Yes. And then to not be able to hold anybody accountable for it is also terrible. So I'm sure after that, there was a lot of batteries and people back. Did you know Miss King? Did you see her around?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And, like, was she as involved as everybody else, or?
I really don't think so. I think she was involved, but I believe now, and if my memory is serving me correctly, that most of them did not want their family involved because they would be a target.
Right.
And you know, and I understood that. A lot of people say they didn't, but I understood it because they would definitely go after them.
They were. Everywhere you turn, somebody's house was getting firebombed. Churches were getting firebombed. Now in Albany, did anybody's house or church get bombed or anything of that nature?
Oh, I can't remember that, if they did.
Okay. So they didn't do those acts of violence.
You know, it was stated that Albany was tried to be the direct opposite of some other places.
Yes, ma'am.
Say, for instance, they would not show any violence or anything when the news was there.
Correct.
In order to save face.
Correct. Okay.
So they didn't do it. They wanted to keep as much out of the news as they could, like the dogs and the water being fire hoses. They didn't do that. They didn't want to put that on.
Okay. So, with that being said, people may look at this interview and not even know what the Albany movement is, unless they're from Albany or are historians like myself, or maybe they go to Albany State and have seen the monuments or their professors taught it to them. And that is most likely because of what you said. Albany did the opposite of what Birmingham and Selma and most civil rights towns did at that time. And that, I believe that sheriff was Pritchett. Lori. Did you have run-ins with him? Like, did you know him or see him?
My cousin babysat for his son.
Really?
And when she was getting ready to meet her in-laws, she asked me to babysit in her place. And I really didn't do that.
Right.
Because I was not in the frame of mind. Not that I love children, and I never would harm children, but I couldn't be a part of being treated unjustly and working for you.
Right.
But because of her, I did.
Okay.
In that, the lady that I babysat for was an ex-daughter-in-law. And she picked me up, I think, about 3 o'clock. And she told me 3 hours, and 10 o'clock she still wasn't there. So I called her, she was on the base, and I said, I need to go home. I'm tired. And I didn't have anything to eat. And she said, well, you just stay there. And the guy in the background was just saying all kind of words, don't worry about that, So at that time I knew that Chief Pritchard was her father-in-law. So I called
like
him.
His son.
Mm-hmm. I called, and I said, you need to come get your grandchild because I'm getting ready to leave.
Right.
I said, I got to go home. I'm hungry. And he said, what do you mean? I said, she hasn't gotten home. Well, see, so he came, and that's how I really met him.
Okay.
He came to get the child.
And what was his personality like?
Oh, typical. I mean, he just said he was upset with her.
Right.
So it was like he was happy that I called him, I guess so they would have something on her. But my point was, you come get this child. I'm not going to leave this child by herself, but I got to go.
Okay. Right.
So that's what happened. So I met him. He didn't say anything to me per se. He just said, well, you can go home now.
Yeah.
So I went home.
Okay. So now with him, I guess, making the decision to not react violently on camera or in front of the news media, that took away the spotlight in a sense.
Yes, it took away the spotlight. And I think Dr. King felt like, because he wanted to be in jail. Well, when we marched and went to jail, they got him out right away, said that somebody had posted bail.
Right.
Nobody had posted bail. We know that.
Right.
But he felt like it was a failure there because of the fact that they wanted to show light on Albany. But he made sure that it was a minimal amount.
Now, because they did it in that way, like you said, they didn't get the publicity as Montgomery would with the fire hoses and the dogs and Chief Connor. It wasn't like that, on camera. But probably once the camera was away, it was probably a lot going on in those situations.
Well, when we marched, when I marched, I didn't see any violence per se of them. I saw people on the sideline trying to spit on you or just saying racial slurs, but there were no, I didn't see anything else.
Nobody getting hit over the head or dragged.
Now, they did, my friend that was in there, they did pick her up, and move her and drag her. They did do that in the alley.
Okay.
We were in the alleyway. That was a sit down.
Okay.
That's why they were trying to move us out of the way. I don't know if we were barricading something, but they did move us like that. Yes.
Roger that. Okay. Let's take it back to Shiloh Baptist Church again, because it's something interesting I ran across this morning, actually, while I was just doing some little fine touches. And you mentioned it in the beginning, I believe, with your cousin, Dr. Rambo. The Freedom Singers. Who were they, and what was their role in the Albany movement?
I hope I can. Well, I just remember, what was that girl's name? Oh, Lord. I can't think of her name. I just see her so well now. But I might have her name here, but anyway, they were a group of, I think they were in college, students that could really sing, and they sang freedom songs.
Okay.
And my cousin was responsible for a couple of the songs that they wrote. I think it was like Old Pritchard, Old Kelly. That was the song. And they sang that song, and that one was in the Smithsonian Institute.
Okay.
But it was just a group of, as I know of it, it was just a group of college students that got together, and they might have been from other places too, but they sang, and they had beautiful voices, beautiful voices.
And those songs, like you said, some of those songs now that are in the museums, those lyrics, those music sheets, or the recordings of those people singing those songs are history today. And we today, even though we don't, as a community, sometimes sing those songs as often as we should, but we can always look back and hear those songs. Like, ain't nobody gonna turn me around.
Oh yeah, we sang that when we were marching.
Right.
We sang those songs, and we shall overcome, and all that while we were marching. And it was a time that, it was a sad time. It was really a sad time, but you'd be singing it. Some people would be crying. Some people would be, singing it out of the depths of their hearts, because we really felt it. I felt it in all the people, that they were sincere. They were tired. They wanted to be treated as humans, and we were not.
Now, most of the time, and when you come to these cities and these movements of desegregation and voter registration, you find that it happens quickly because of that media attention, because of like maybe the national government getting involved and swaying something to go one way. But with Albany, like you said, it didn't go as planned. King, he said himself, the mistake he made was not focusing on one thing, focusing on segregation as a whole, and not focusing on maybe desegregating the lunch counter, or just staying focused on desegregating the buses. But eventually, in 1963, the Albany community commissioners, they voted to desegregate. Now, when they voted to desegregate, how quickly did that go in act? Because we know everything, they can say what they want, but are they really going to do it? So how did that go?
And in some businesses it went fast, and some it didn't, naturally. But I remember in '63 they started, and the first group that went to Bell South to work, because they didn't have us there, I was in the second batch of people that integrated. And
you were an operator? Or?
And I did, because I was going into college, so I knew I wasn't going to stay, but they asked me to go to take, to integrate. And I went there, and it was, the person that was training was about my age, and it was another girl I'll never forget, from Camilla, Georgia, and she was there, and it was the two of us. And it was just like I wasn't there, and I made a higher score than she did. And she said to her, "Oh, she made a higher score than you. I don't believe that." And I said, "She's right here," because I said, "She's right here."
And this was a white lady?
Oh yeah, she was young,
woman?
and her name was Bobby. I never forget.
Bobby,
And she said she wanted me to call her Miss Bobby, and I said, "Excuse me."
And y'all the same age?
Yeah, I said, if you call me Miss Betty, I'll call you Miss Bobby. So I worked there until I started college, because I got a full scholarship with this flute.
To Albany State. Okay.
So I wasn't going to stay at the telephone company. So I stayed as long as I could, so that I could integrate, and they started bringing other people in. I was in the second batch. I wasn't in the first. But at any rate, it was just still a lot of hostility. And then when you go to eat at those lunch counters, which I did not do, I didn't know. I didn't want to eat, because I was afraid what they'd do to my food. I'll be honest with you. So I would not eat there. I wouldn't go there. So, and then to this day, I don't know if you know, I will not. I don't drink out of water fountains. I won't do it.
We don't have to no more. So I haven't witnessed you not drinking out of a water fountain. But is that like some PTSD?
I think so.
It is. I don't drink out of no water fountain.
It is. It is.
Okay,
it is.
Now, how did the bathroom work? What about the bathrooms? So
the same. They had a colored. They called it colored, and they had a white. And most of the time they didn't have a color. We were. I'm trying to think. We had to go somewhere, and they didn't have a bathroom for us.
Just that. So you
And
basically
you
have
and
to
then
go
you
outside or hold it.
a whole, or you find black establishments,
Right.
but and then no hotels,
Okay.
no
Yeah.
hotels, you know.
Man. So we get to 1963. Now we integrating in Albany, and some cities in the South are integrating more. And you know, interstate travel is getting better with the freedom riders and things of that nature. Now, the last thing I want to kind of hit on with the Albany movement is C.B. King. Right, he was the leading lawyer for all the cases, and he represented all the people who were jailed at the time. And the thing that the sheriff did in Albany, like you said, instead of turning the dogs on you, instead of turning the hoses on you, he just rounded everybody up and locked them up. And he would spread you throughout the area. He wouldn't just put you in the county jail, so he would spread you throughout the area. Now, you have gotten in good trouble. So tell me about your experiences when these mass jailings.
Well, the first time I went to jail, I think they took us to Camilla, Georgia, to a school gym, and we stayed overnight.
How far was that from Albany?
Maybe about 35 miles.
Okay.
And we stayed overnight. We slept on the floor, and then they brought us back, and we went. I'll never forget. We went in the courthouse, and I said to myself, I said, "Well, I'm gonna have a record." So, and then the next time, we went to meetings. The next time we went to jail, we didn't go to jail when Martin Luther King was there, Dr. Martin Luther King. We just protested. They didn't put us in. They might have put some, but
Right.
not. I didn't go at that time. And let me just say something about him. I was sitting behind him because it was so crowded.
Dr. King?
Yes, and you know how you sit. He would be sitting in the pulpit. And I was right behind him, and I kept touching him. And every time I touched him, he would turn around and he would touch my hand. And I'm saying, but Abernathy told me to stop, of course, because of course I was worrying him to death. But he was just like a god to me, you know. So.
And you were in high school, you were in 10th grade, so you probably like 15, 16.
Yeah.
At the time.
But I was a little younger because I started school a little early.
Okay.
But the thing about it is that what I remember about him was his patience and his kindness. That he was so kind and patient.
Right.
But okay, I got off the subject with that.
No, you're fine.
But I had to say that because
you don't meet many people who can say I touched
I
Dr.
touched
King.
him. Yes.
I talked to Dr. King. I saw him speak. I heard his sermon. Like that's something that you can only dream of, or you can just watch in the movie. So you can
I
seeing
touched
him and hearing him, those words, how powerful was that?
It was so powerful. It was unbelievable because like I was like really into this. Every night I would eat, every evening I'd eat, and I'm straight to Shallow.
Yeah.
Straight to Shallow. And the Shallow didn't have, it was across the street at Mount Zion.
Right.
There were two churches. But the next time I went to jail, I remember it was during spring break. It was Easter break. And my mother had said, this lady had said, I'm going to pray for y'all. And Mama said, I thought she was teasing. She said, Betty, don't go this time. I don't want you to go. She said, they're going to keep you longer. I said, no, they're not. I'm a minor. They can't do it, Mama. So I went. We stayed there about 4 or 5 days.
You should. Well,
Yes.
I guess you okay. Can't say you should listen, to Mama. It was for a good purpose.
I wasn't going to listen anyway.
Right. Yeah. You gotta do
So
what you gotta do.
So we went.
When you would get arrested, would you actually get booked? Like, did you have to take a mug shot, or they just held you?
They just held us.
Okay, all right. Ironically, C.B. King fought all these civil rights cases and fought all these mishandlements with the justice system. And now in Albany, Georgia, the federal courthouse is C.B. King Courthouse, right? So that's a testament to show his strength and his push during that movement. So in 1963, you're in college?
No, I went to college in 64.
64. Okay, so you're about to graduate high school. Now you get the scholarship to Albany State. Tell me about your experience at Albany State, going in as a freshman and just.
Well, my first year was okay, but I didn't apply myself as well as I should have the first year because I had thought that I should have gone to Bethune-Cookman because I had a full scholarship there, and because my boyfriend was down there. So, but I didn't go. But after the first semester, I started really applying myself and really getting down to the working and academics of it, and I enjoyed it. I loved Albany State. I was a music major. At first, I was sociology. Okay. Then I went to music major. And I was pure music, which was performing. So I'll never forget this lady. She used to let me in the back door of the fine arts building because you're not supposed to be in there at a certain time. But because I was all around, wanted to be everywhere at all times, she would let me in at 6 o'clock to practice my flute.
Right.
I was practiced 2 hours. The other kids, of course, didn't get there till about 9 o'clock. By the time they got there, I was in the student union building. I had practiced my flute. I had studied and everything, so I was ready to mingle. So it was just a great time for me. I enjoyed every bit of Albany State. As a matter of fact, I started pledging there, and I stayed longer than I was supposed to because I wanted to stay, and my mother didn't know it. So I took educational courses, which was very beneficial to me. And one of the principals found out, told my mom and said, well, she's been finished. She's just still there.
Okay.
But that's how great I had a time I had.
Just enjoying it.
I enjoyed my college life. It was wonderful.
Right. Okay. So now this is in Career College 1965 to like 1970?
Yes.
Okay. And in those times, a lot has happened.
Mm-hmm.
A lot has happened.
That's changed then.
You saw a president get assassinated.
First, I saw, yes, but yes.
You saw a president got jail. How was that with JFK?
Well, a lot of them thought that he was our savior and he was for us. So we were very devastated.
Right. Now, following JFK, now you have Martin Luther King.
I'll never forget it.
Now, in Albany in particular, how was that day? How was that news?
Well, I'll never forget it because I probably was at school, at college, and my friend called and said, come over to the house, and I found out that he had been killed. And on our way over there were these white teenagers, taunting us and saying, I'm glad, So we jumped out the car to go get them to fight. But I don't know what stopped. I don't know what, I think they ran away because we were just that devastated. And it was hard. It was
a tough day.
It was tough. It was a tough day.
Did you guys do your own mourning at the churches or anything for him? Mm-hmm. Okay, so. But
it's the day of his funeral. I never forget. I was at the hairdresser and I looked at it because I was leaving the next day for Washington D.C. Okay. So I couldn't go to the service. I had to get.
So some people did go to Atlanta.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Some people did go to Atlanta. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
That.
And they couldn't, of course, get in. Some of them, but they were outside.
Just being there. Just being there. That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm. That was tough. That was tough.
So seeing those kind of events take place from about 64 to 70, I skipped over this. I can't believe it. Freedom Summer, SNCC and CORE. Mm-hmm. So Albany had young men come in from college and help the voter registration. Mm-hmm. Now you hear they go down to Mississippi and they're doing the same thing. And then you see on the news or newspaper, however you got your information, that there are missing volunteers. Mm-hmm. And then, lo and behold, they find those 3 missing volunteers. So how did that, as a student at the time, and you being involved in the movement, what did you think about that?
Well, it was heartbreaking. And when we found that they were missing, we automatically thought the worst. Right. As having experienced some of the things that had happened. And it was just devastating that people would come down and help us that, now, because they helped, they're gone. Right. So it was devastating.
That's just, and like your mom, she know you out here fighting for a right cause, but I'm sure every night you was out there, she was probably worried.
She couldn't sleep.
Right.
When we were in jail, that down there, they didn't know what they'd do to us, but we were okay. You know, they had us all in one cell, and there was about 15 of us in one cell, and it was very hard to sleep or anything.
Yeah.
But we had talent shows. We had people in there. Those singers.
Y'all had talent shows in the jail, or in the little holding areas.
Yes.
Okay.
We had talent show. We would sing. We would have a good time. You know, we made the best of it, and we had some great singers.
Now I heard I love watching documentaries. I turned on a documentary just cause.
Eyes on the Prize.
Yeah, I don't know if it was which one it was, but they told me like some of the participants would take their homework in their pockets while they're in the jail. They be doing assignments, or they be reading, or they be. Some people might have been writing books or doing something like that. So you guys were able to keep yourself busy and focus on something else instead of being incarcerated.
We had a good time until some of the girls got sick, but we would. It wasn't a good time, but we made the best of it. I'll say, we made the best of it. And then sometimes I used to do my homework down at the Albany Movement. You know?
Yeah. Okay, so now you finally decide to apply for graduation and graduate from Albany.
Yes.
So when you're graduating, what are you thinking is next in your head? What are you doing?
Trying to
next?
find a job.
Okay.
That was my focus was to find a job.
Right.
And that's what I put my efforts into.
And where did you end up?
I ended up getting a job in Avery, Georgia, which is maybe about 8 miles or 10 miles from Rennes.
Okay.
And, yep, that was my first teaching job. I taught music.
Okay, so tell me, how do we end up in Harlem? How did we get in New York?
In New York. Well, I was staying with he's my husband, but I was staying with his mother. I rented a room from her, and he came down. And I met him, and then
so you met him
in
her?
Georgia. He came to visit his mother.
Okay.
And I talked to him during the year. He would come down, and then at the end of my school year, they didn't know if the Title I was going to be reinstated. So I decided. My friend Beverly said that, well, we'll go back to Washington D.C. and we'll get a job. So I said, okay. I'll meet you there. So in the meantime, he said, well, on your way to Washington, D.C., why don't I send for you? You come up and stay with my sister and then visit with me. So I did that. And then staying with his sister had problems and she wouldn't go to work. So I would go to work with her at NYU. And I ended up getting a job there because just being with her.
Okay.
So I called my friend. I said, listen, I got a job. Do you have a job? So she said, no. I said, well, they have another job here that you can apply for, and she did, and we got our apartment in Sugar Hill, which is in Harlem.
All right, and at the time, Sugar Hill was a nice area in Harlem,
Beautiful.
Very prosperous,
It still
filled
is.
with black love and unity and entrepreneurship, all those sorts of things. So being in that environment, what did that give you a different feeling than from being in the South?
I'm going to be honest with you. When I got to New York, I didn't think about New York.
Okay.
I just didn't think about a lot of things like the crime, where we were living. I didn't know that it was the place that a lot of people wanted to be. My husband had a place, and he gave it to us and moved in the next building. And I didn't know that because I think I would have stayed there because it was so nice. I mean, it was nice. It was a close-knit community, like you say, industrious.
Yeah.
And I loved it there. And I lived on a cliff, so I could look over into the Bronx and stuff, so it was nice.
Now, through conversations we've talked about, your husband and the things you were able to do in New York because of his various connections. So, a lot of things were happening in New York in the 70s, whether that be the black experience or that just mean the overall experience in New York, right? Because you had Harlem, Brooklyn, Queens, and then you had Manhattan, Staten Island, things going on, all sorts of things. You got the mob, you got music, hip hop, the news, you got the sports teams. There's a lot going on in New York. So you're in there, the music.
Mm-hmm.
What was the main music you was hearing in the streets of New York, or the concerts you were going to while you were in Harlem?
Well, when I first got there, I would go to the Apollo Theater every Thursday.
Okay.
Because it was right around the street from where his sister lived. She lived on 128th, and it was on 125th. So during the day, when she was sleeping or whatever she was doing or going place, I would be walking the streets of Harlem and going to the stores and just looking at what the billboard, who they were bringing. So my husband would he wasn't my husband then, but he would take me to the Apollo Theater on Thursday. Amateur night was on Wednesday.
Okay.
So every Thursday we would go. And then, of course, when we got married, he started working as special officer with the Mets,
Okay.
whatever teams they had, Yankees, Radio City Music Hall, Madison Square Garden. So when anybody came in, I could see them free.
Okay.
Even the only thing I didn't see free was the operas, because he didn't do those.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't see those free. But I gotta say, people were very nice. I couldn't afford those tickets, so I would get standing room only. But the other people would let me sit down.
And was this the time that like Motown was doing the Motown Review concert? So you was able to see a lot of, I guess,
Gladys Knight, all of them.
Aretha, Temptation.
Oh, yeah.
Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You see our boy James Brown.
Oh yeah, James Brown. Now, when I was in college,
Right.
if you didn't like James Brown, I didn't talk to you. Simple as that. I just didn't talk because I was a dancer. I liked to dance. So if you didn't like James, first thing I would ask you, do you like James Brown?
Right.
And if you said no, that was it.
Okay. And I don't know why I didn't ask you this. Being in college during that time, did James Brown ever come in the area? Did you ever go to any James Brown concert?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, now we touched the Apollo. In Harlem at that time, also, it was a tough time. We had just lost Malcolm X.
Well, yeah, we lost Malcolm X long
So
before.
like that was his
Yeah.
movement was going away. The civil rights movement itself, with the nonviolence and the peaceful protest, was moving out. Now you're getting into the, correct me if I'm wrong, you're getting into the years of the Afro, Black Power movement. So now we're seeing Nation of Islam. We're seeing the Black Panthers. Women are growing their hair out natural. No more perms, no more, things like that. The men are taking the conks out. They dressing different. So what was that vibe like in Harlem?
Well, my friend Beverly decided that she was thinking about being Muslim.
Okay.
And I loved the Muslims and Minister Farrakhan, because I saw the difference he made in the lives of our black men. I saw men who were on drugs really badly, and I saw how he cleaned them up, gave them pride, and you would see them with those suits on and walking down the street and being where they've said something to you maybe months and months ago that was not correct, or shouldn't have spoken that way to a lady. You'll see them tipping their hats and saying, Miss so-and-so. I saw that. So I was impressed with him. So we went to his temple a few times.
Okay.
And we ate dinner there, so.
So you was able to see the
I
impact.
heard him. Yeah, I heard him speak, and he was such an eloquent speaker to me.
To this day, like a lot of people have the different views on Mr. Farrakhan, but to this day, if you haven't sat down and at least listened to
him,
a word of it, just to see, just to understand what he's saying.
Right, you got to listen to
him.
him.
Not everything may not be for you, but you get something.
That's right.
So it just leave your mind open to interpretation.
Well, he was just a great influence on changing the lives of black men and making them worthy, and making them feel good about themselves, and treating ladies with respect.
Because at that time, a lot of men were looking for direction. They were looking to be better,
the drugs
to better
were
themselves.
Yes, and the drugs were bad then.
I believe in the 60s, in that area, was a lot of heroin and things going on. So he was taking junkies, convicts and turning them into
turn
whole
them
new
into
people.
men.
Yeah.
I mean that's what I was impressed with.
And also the men of discipline.
Yes,
A lot of discipline.
and just to see them how regimented they were and happy to be was
In
just
order.
amazing. It was just amazing.
Now, we seen the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
What about the Panthers?
I don't remember too much about the Panthers. I saw, but I didn't interact with them.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have any interaction.
All right. So those are I love the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Huey, Bobby
Yeah.
Seale,
Mm-hmm.
even Eldridge, you know.
I mean, I
just-
knew of them, but I
Yeah,
didn't.
just their teaching, because they came from the world of SNCC.
Mm-hmm.
They came from SNCC and Core. They came from that, and they just were fed up.
They were fed up
They were
with.
fed up with the nonviolent
Yes.
protests, the slow but steady progress.
Yes.
They wanted direct action in the communities.
That's right.
You know, and maybe not even to be the Panthers, but I'm sure in New York you saw community organizations helping out at that time. Because although New York might have been prosperous, it was a very time of economic hardship. There was a lot of people in our community who may not know where their next meal was coming from or where they were going to stay at that next night. So some of those community organizations did provide stability in the family.
Right. It's true.
So we talked about music at the Apollo. Now tell me what else you were doing in New York. You became a social worker, right?
After I left NYU, yes, we worked for the welfare department, social worker, and after that, I worked for the juvenile system as a counselor. I was a counselor. Then I went back to family counseling, worked there, and then I started teaching and became a director of an early childhood center. And I taught at the College in New Rochelle as an adjunct professor, and I worked a lot. And I did basic education also.
So
In Mount
education
Vernon.
has always been a strong part of your upbringing and
Yes.
just your life, giving back to people, to instill education in people, right?
And I attended church in Harlem,
Okay.
even though I was in the Bronx then. But I went to Southern Baptist Church, which was it was a landmark because it was on the theater circuit. That means that when people came from all over the world, we had this big, nice church, and the balcony. They would bring the buses, and they would come and participate. You know, be in the service. So.
Okay.
It was a beautiful church, beautiful singing. They had, oh Lord, what was the name of that? They bought this famous organ with all the pipes, and I forget, Virgil Tibbs organ. Organ. They bought that, so it was amazing. And the guy who played the organ was from Juilliard. He was a student of Juilliard.
Okay.
And his mother met my mother, and his grandmother met my mother in Albany, and we didn't even know it.
So now we're moving on throughout the decades. We've been through the 60s. We're in the 70s now, and like I said, we're moving away from a civil rights nonviolent movement to a Black Power movement, a movement of we want progress now. Being a black female in your workspace, did you feel that you were treated fairly?
When I worked as a social worker, you could tell the difference. You knew that you were being paid differently than your male counterpart. You knew that. But other than that, it was just a way. It was just a way. I didn't say anything about it per se. I would mention it to my supervisor to let him know that I knew, but it was just a way. It was just what they did.
Okay. All right. So now we move through the 70s. So tell me how we ended back up in not Augusta, Georgia, but the Augusta, Georgia area, back in Rennes and Harlem.
Well, we always came home now, quite a lot. But then after my husband's mother passed, he wanted to retire here, and that's how we ended up coming back.
Okay.
And I'm glad because I got a chance to spend time with my family also. So that's
And once you moved back, you started teaching where?
At North Harlem.
Okay, and how long were you in North Harlem?
Well, I taught, let's see, I came back, I had a job at North Harlem, but then they said they couldn't find my certification, so I went to Richmond County to Jamestown for about 2 years. Then I came back to North Harlem. I taught there for about, from 93 to 2010, I think it was.
2010, okay, so your time teaching in North Harlem, how was that? What was that experience like?
Well, when I first came back, I really did not expect some of the hostility that I got from being from the North. I didn't. I didn't know what it was, but it was targeted with my New York tag. But things got better, but I had a little rocky time at first there.
Because Harlem then and just now in recent years has moved from being a rural kind of town to now, it's becoming more, they're building it up now with the military coming in and things like that.
Yeah, it's different, yeah.
In the 90s in Harlem, I'm sure you were still the minority.
Yes,
and,
yes.
The parents probably weren't always the best.
Well, I had a lady when I was interviewing, I thought the interview was going well. I forgot that school over there by Walmart on Deansbury Road, and was going well. And then all of a sudden she said, "Now you're not going to come down here and get my black people all stirred up just because you're from New York." And she said, "Well, you need to sell yourself." That was a trigger for me.
She said, "Settle yourself."
Yeah, sell yourself.
Sell yourself.
Sell yourself. So I got my briefcase and I said, "This interview is over," and I walked out.
Right.
Because I had a flashback.
Yeah.
So I could do that. But, I have to say at North Harlem, after a while, I had a great time there. It was a great school. We did some great things. At the end, it was wonderful. I met some good friends that I have to this day.
So, and even now, you're still giving back to the kids with our program at work, the Dream Academy, and that is started up from North Harlem. So how did you go from teaching to moving into the after-school role?
You mean during the day?
Yes, ma'am.
At North Harlem. Well, I was earlier. The Dr. Evans and Dr. Soloff had talked to me about the after-school program because I was in charge of one in New York. And they wrote a grant and got it started and asked if I would be in charge of it. So I just transitioned over from a teacher to be in charge of the after-school program. And then Albany County Community Connections, which was Family Connections, would come on Thursday and Friday to our program. And that's how I met Julie and Tika.
Okay. All right. So your capacity now, the director of the Dream Academy, and what is the legacy for the Dream Academy and the vision?
My vision?
Yes, ma'am. Because I see you every day. You interact with the kids love you, and you've been doing it for a long time. So what do you want the Dream Academy to be once it's all said and done?
Well, I would love to see someone, because my time, I'm getting older, even though I got the energy and everything. I just like to see it elevated more from what I've done. I want to see somebody come in, take it over, and take it to the next level. Okay. Because I always want it to be a place where the children really want to come, not that they're being made to come, that they're like running off the bus. If you can see them, they run off the bus, they're ready to get there, they're happy. I want them to be happy, well-rounded, and academically enriched.
Right.
And I want to see it go to another level.
And I've only been there going on, like I said, 5-6 months, but the things that have been done in the past already with the store, with the restaurant, and then how you have community leaders come in and show them things. Like, I don't think they would have ever, the water people, the water utility people, she came in and showed them what's in the creeks and what's in the sewers and about those habitats and things. I don't think those kids would have seen that or actually looked into it without you doing that, or the firemen, the police officers.
Well, see, one thing about it is that, and I'm happy and I thank God for that, is that I'm never complacent. Our children, I want them to experience as much as possible. I don't want them just to experience the Harlem, just Harlem. I try to take them out of it and take them into more culturally programs. For instance, they used to go to First Baptist Church to hear the orchestra. Now they stopped there. We did go down to the Bell. Is that the Bell? Yeah, the Bell Auditorium where the orchestra is, but it wasn't the same. But things like that, I just like to expose them to things they wouldn't ordinarily be exposed to, and that was important to me. Like we go golfing, they used to go to First Tee.
Now,
they
guys,
did a lot of things.
I'm going to show you something that she showed me. I think one of our first encounters, we was going to a conference when I first got hired, and y'all just having a conversation in the car on the way there. I was in and out of sleep, and you was talking to Dylan, like, yeah, I got my heart with me. Like, most people go on a conference, they might bring their laptop, got some work to do, or just sit back and watch TV. You said you were going to practice your harp, and I'm like, your harp? I'm thinking like, what is he talking about? She practicing her harp. No, you play the harp. So how long have you been playing the harp?
Well, I started in 2018, and the thing about it is, it's funny because I went to the doctor's office, heart doctor's office, and I saw this lady with a harp necklace on, and I said, oh my goodness. I say, I've always wanted to play the harp. I don't know if that was entirely true or what. I've always loved them, right? So anyway, she came out and she said to me, I'm going to give you this paper, but please don't share it with anybody. Because I told her, I said, I can't afford it, but I want a harp. So she gave me this paper with people selling their harps. And she said, don't share it because you're supposed to be a part of the group. Well, whenever I get, anybody can tell you that know me, when I get something on my mind, I'm determined. So I looked and I narrowed it down to 2. And then I wrote her and I said, because she gave me her number, I said, which of the 2 would you get? And this is my first one. This is not the one. This is my first one. And she said, I would get the Blevins, which is this one. And I wrote her and I said, that was like on a Friday. On that Wednesday, I was on my way to meet a lady from Atlanta in Madison to pick this instrument up. So this is my first baby. This is Noelle. Her name is Noelle. And I started in 2018. She gave me a teacher because I didn't know anything. I said, oh my God. She said, you're going to need a teacher. I didn't know you were serious. She gave me my teacher, and you met my teacher, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
And I practiced, and then I did up until I got my hand broken. And that stopped me for about 7 months, I think. And I was determined to go back. I said, I can't put my money into this. I got to go back. And I was just doing it with one hand.
Yes,
so finally, I just started doing it again. Now, it's not, it's not the best,
Right.
but I can do it. So, so this is my first baby.
Now, I'm going to try to get her to play us a little selection, guys. I'll put it in the end. But, I've never seen somebody so, and even still, interested in learning new things and finding a way to do something even if there's some setbacks. Now, she had a concert with her harp group, man, and I tell you, I was shocked. I was like, wow, they are all playing this harp. Like, how many of you guys is it?
I think it was 7 of us.
7 of you. And there's also a young lady, a very young baby. She's about 6 years old, playing the harp like she was born with it.
Yeah. Aurora.
I couldn't play that thing if it saved my life. I've only seen it on TV shows.
Oh, don't say that. You can.
So, it's just I like to see that because, unfortunately, once our elders sometimes get up in age, they don't instead of finding things to keep them occupied, they just, they may just sit in front of the TV or just get comfortable. And I see that in you, that you're not getting comfortable no time soon.
No, because my next one will be the violin. I brought my violin.
Violin.
I'm going to take lessons for that.
When did you start that?
I haven't. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So
the
I bought
is
one.
Next.
I bought one.
Violin is next. Okay. All right. Guys, I tell you right now, man, if you do not know Miss Betty Kelly, I hope this interview has gave you a little glimpse into her and shown you that all she has to offer and more. And just that history is around you every day, man. Like, I didn't go into this job expecting to meet a civil rights activist, a real civil rights activist, not somebody who just gets on Twitter or Facebook and repost some things. I'm talking about somebody who actually did the work, marched, was in the jails with Martin Luther King, was in the churches with hearing his sermons, hearing his words, actually taking it to the streets and affecting change. I tell people all the time, we're here today doing the things we're doing because of people like you. Me, myself, my niece here, we couldn't go into school at some of the schools we go to or work the places we work without people like you who were in your teen years who said, let me do something now so that my future or the future of others can be better. And, we thank you for doing that. And that's the purpose of this interview today. Just want to shed some light on you and let you know that you are appreciated, that we see you. We appreciate everything you've done for us and are still doing for us because you are history yourself, and we see you every day, and people may not know who they're passing. So instead of not talking to your elders or just going over there when your mama or your auntie tell you to, like, go talk to these people, man. It's living history. They have something to show you. They have something to tell you. Because once it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone.
You're not going to know what to do. You're not going to know how things were because history repeats itself.
Yes.
So what you went through may be something that somebody else is going through, and they need to hear you in order to get through it. And so we thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is not the end. We got much more. We going to do some of this harp playing. We're going to have her play the flute and the harp just so y'all can see. Oh, not that one, huh? That was out of
This one can't play.
He can't
it's
play. It's a good story, though. It's a great story.
Yeah, this one won't play anymore.
We all going to get that harp on camera, though. We're going to let y'all see her play the harp, man. And, I thank you for being here today, Miss Kelly.
You're
so
welcome.
We wrap
Thank
it up,
you for
man.
inviting
Thank
me.
y'all for coming to the streets talking. We're going to get back to it. See you later.
Okay.
Now I got to figure out how to do this. All right.
Is that rain?
Yeah. Hey, Mr.